We're big fans of first-generation Camaros here at the V8 Speed Resto Shop. In fact, we're building a Pro Touring 67 right behind me, complete with upgraded ride-tech suspension, a 556 horsepower supercharged LSA engine, and a 6-speed manual gearbox. We've done extensive metalwork on this car, and it's getting ready to go into the bodywork and paint phase. And we'll be sure to share a feature video on it when it's finished. But today, we're taking a look at 5 of our favorite first-generation Camaros built right here in our shop, in no particular order. First up is a 1969 Camaro named Lose Change. The goal for this car was to combine modern Camaro styling and performance with the classic look of a 69 without clashing with the original design. Professional designer Dan Steinhauser created the rendering, complete with a modern ZL1 style hood with carbon fiber insert and a 3D printed grille echoing today's styling. We performed all the metalwork in-house, including fabrication of the custom hood, installation of all new floors, quarter panels, tail panel, fenders, and much more. Lose Change rides on a complete Detroit Speed suspension system, including their hydroform subframe up front, tubular control arms, rack and pinion steering, and coilover shocks. A Quadrelink rear suspension system keeps the Curry 9 Plus rear axle assembly in line. Deep tubs were added to accommodate the Toyo R888 tires wrapped around forge line wheels, and hydro boosted brakes bring it all to a stop. The engine is a modified supercharged GM LSA, 6.2 liters, making approximately 630 horsepower, backed by a 6-speed manual transmission. And a goal was to keep the engine bay nice and clean, with the hoses and wires routed out of the way. We put a roll cage in the car to stiffen it up, added some Recaro seats, Dakota gauges, and a few other tricks to keep the interior functional and clean. After the body gaps were set and all the body work completed, the car was sprayed in Mars Red, which kind of splits the difference between Hugger Orange and Garnet Red. A modern ZL1 stripe races up the hood, over the roof, and runs down the trunk, in addition to the black original hockey stick stripes that you'll find on both sides. Attracted by the color, the eye wanders all over this car, discovering more cool little details. The 3D printed grille is the focal point of the car, followed by that custom hood and the carbon fiber insert. But then the fit and finish, the aggressive stance, they all come into play. It was a feature car at the SEMA show and at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals, as well as in Hemming's Muscle Machines magazine. And this one is great fun to drive. Next up is a great 69 Camaro owned by one of the best names in performance parts, Comp Cams. Comp has owned this car for decades and used it at events, on the Hot Rod Power Tour, and as a promotional car for years. When it needed a refresh, we were honored that they sent it to us here at the V8 Speed Resto Shop to bring it all around. It was a pretty clean car, but we still had to put in a new trunk floor and lower quarter panel sections, along with some floor, dash, and firewall rust repairs. Upgrades to the car include a Heights front subframe and tubular suspension, and a Heights rear 4-link system supporting the Curry rear axle. Coilover shocks are at all 4 corners, and the steering is now rack and pinion. The Heights suspension system is a true bolt-in, both front and rear. Powering the Comp Camaro is a Butler-built LS 454, making 690 horsepower with a tall deck RHS block and heads, a fast LSXR intake, and of course a full Comp Cams valve train. It uses a Wegner front drive system and custom valve covers. We built a custom air intake filter housing, and the engine is fed fuel by a fast XFI 2.0 EFI system. And this thing's an animal. A TCI 6X 6-speed automatic transmission was chosen for its strength and overdrive, and its ability to keep the engine in the power band easier than a 4-speed can. The Comp Camaro was bodyworked straight and sprayed in a 2-stage brilliant white with traditional black SS stripes, but trimmed in a red pinstripe to echo the Comp logo colors. This is a real RS car, so the RS trim stayed in the design. The interior features Distinctive Industries Touring 2 seats upholstered in the traditional houndstooth pattern, Dakota digital gauges, a billet specialty steering wheel, and a custom console to accommodate the TCI shifter. And although the top goes down, a vintage air AC system keeps everyone cool. Most of the restoration parts on the Comp Camaro came from year one. Forged CCW wheels are wrapped in Continental tires, and they nicely reveal the Willwood brakes, and we really dig the stance of this car. This thing makes power all over the tack and is a total blast to drive. And being a white convertible, people don't expect the power it puts down, but when the hammer falls, it's on. This car was a big hit in the comp display at the SEMA show, and we also participated in the CarCraft Summer Nationals Pro Builder Shootout with the car. It was truly an honor to build this Camaro for our friends at the Comp Performance Group. Our next Camaro is another 69, but it's an all-new car with nearly 100% aftermarket parts. We called it the ZR9. We utilized a brand new Camaro body shell, added some bigger wheel tubs, subframe connectors, and a complete Detroit Speed suspension system. Power for this one comes from a Mast Motorsports LS7 based 427, topped with an LS9 supercharger, making over 800 horsepower with a 6-speed manual transmission. Inside you'll find a full leather and carbon fiber interior with speed hut gauges, vintage air, and a high-end audio system, all wrapped in a custom dash. And with all the high-tech hardware, the look of the car remains true to the classic 69 with the original window trim, badges, and cowl induction hood all in place. The color is Corvette ZR1 Jetstream Blue, which really makes the polished trim and the polished forged line wheels stand out. There are custom parts all over this car, but it still remains highly functional. In fact, the owner reports the car has been to 168 miles per hour so far, and it turns heads wherever it goes. Okay, so our first Camaros were LS powered, but now we're going to good old-fashioned big block grunt in the 1968 Camaro we called Reloaded. The goal of the Reloaded Camaro was to create a modern version of the dealer supercars from the late 1960s, like the 427 Camaros built by Yenko and Nicky Chevrolet, among some of the others. So we started with a pretty clean 68 SS 396 car and stripped it down to perform the necessary sheet metal repairs. The original front subframe was modified with a Detroit Speed coilover suspension system and tubular control arms for improved handling. Out back, a Detroit Speed quadrillink system and a Curry rear axle were assembled for far better traction and less wheel hop than the original leaf springs. Numerous subtle body mods were made to smooth out the shell, including trimming the drip rails, narrowing the bumpers, setting precise panel gaps, adding flush glass, and much more. And while the body was being massaged to perfection, our friends at Fast Times Motor Works assembled a 490 cubic inch roller cam big block V8 designed to make tons of torque, but still perform on regular pump gas. It used an Eagle stroker kit, reworked Holley cylinder heads, and a full comp roller valve train. And the look of the engine is super clean, with satin colors that complement the exterior with no messy wires or hoses being visible. The transmission is a TCI 4L80E automatic overdrive. And our friend Ben Hermance at Hermance Design penned all the renderings, which sought to capture that 60s supercar look, but remain contemporary at the same time. A two-tone BASF silver and gunmetal color scheme was chosen, with kind of a modified Yenko stripe running the length of the car. And one of the most eye-catching features on this car is the Stinger Corvette-style hood, which looks right at home on this Camaro. RS head and taillights were also installed, and Reloaded's interior consists of Scat Pro Car bucket seats and new vintage USA gauges in an otherwise stock but restored interior space. Vintage air was also added along with upgraded audio. Reloaded originally rode on 17 and 18-inch Rocket Racing booster wheels finished in traditional gray with custom-made Toyo tires redlined by Diamondback Classics. The look was both contemporary and traditional at the same time, and the car looked great at the SEMA show in the MagnaFlow display, and later scored 997 out of 1,000 points at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals in the modified class. Hemmings Muscle Machines also printed a great feature story on the car. And then a couple years later, some new Rocket Racing Attack Series wheels were swapped on, and once again, the car was a big hit at the SEMA show, this time in the Rocket Racing booth. And today, it's still one of our favorites. So we didn't paint this next 69 Camaro or do the interior, but we ended up doing just about everything else on the car after it was painted. This one came to us with a stock suspension system, some rust in the wheel wells and the trunk floor, and hidden in the firewall. It had a big block Chevy engine, but the owner wanted more of everything. More power, more traction, more handling performance, so our crew went to work. The first time the car was here, we gutted the bottom side and fixed some rust, and then installed a whole Detroit Speed suspension system, both front and rear. We installed an EFI system on the big block Chevy and changed some gauges in the dash. Bigger bare brakes were added, and a new set of forged line wheels was custom made for the car. The handling and braking improvements were huge, but after driving a little while, the owner wanted the smooth power of a supercharged dry sump LT4 engine. So the car came back to the V8 Speed Resto Shop for round 2. And this time, the big Chevy was removed and the team began fitting the LT4. It was determined that the firewall needed a dimple to clear the high pressure injection harness, which revealed some rust in the firewall, which led to a custom firewall fabricated just for this car. And this is an RS nose car with the hidden headlights, and the owner didn't want to cut the cowl apart to hide the big Peterson dry sump oil reserve tank, so our fabrication team figured out a way to hide the tank just in front of the passenger front wheel, but behind the headlight. This required re-engineering the whole headlight mechanism to make it all work, but it came out super clean. The LT4 is a direct injection supercharged engine, which requires a new wiring harness, a specific high pressure fuel system, and a cooling system up for the task. A CNR cooling module was added with an integrated fan shroud for the Spall fans and CNR's exclusive R-fin technology for better heat rejection on the street. And stock LT4s are powerful, but this one is making north of 750 horsepower with upgraded pulleys, valve springs, injectors, and an alcohol injection kit. We performed a custom tune on the GM ECM to maximize power and drivability while keeping the engine safe. The personality change was drastic, and the LT4 provides a smooth running engine that goes crazy when you drop the hammer. It's an amazing car with a great owner, and it even landed on the cover of Hemmings Muscle Machines magazine. Of course, we build less radical Camaros, but we're always looking to push the envelope of performance and creativity. What ideas do you have for your ideal Camaro? You can contact us at v8speedshop.com today, and we'd love to talk to you and help bring those ideas to life.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to WatchPTTV.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.